Okay, we're going to do an introductory activity this morning called Bumpty Bump Bump. We're going to divide into two groups, and before we divide up, I'm going to let Sandy explain to you how we play Bumpty Bump Bump. And Bob, you should be getting this, I hope.
And just so you know, this is in the list of activities that you're going to get today. However, the one in the book is a slightly different, use slightly different words than the words that I use. So you'll get the idea, and you'll make the transition, I'm sure. So basically, we'll be standing in a circle, and everybody's in a circle. One person is in the center, and the person in the center will approach one person, and then I'm going to say one of four things to her. I'm either going to say left, right, front, or center, and after I say that, so for example, if I chose to say left, I would say left, bumpity bump bump bump.
Simran.
And by the time,
Whoa!
So by the time I get done saying bumpity bump bump bump, she has to have said the name of the person that's either to the left, to the right, to the front, or center is herself. Okay. So front is me because I'm in front of her, and then the left to right. Okay. So we go around, and so
But you don't.
She said Simran.
You don't say me, right? You say your own name. Is that right?
You have to say your own name. The kids always want to say me when it's them. It's like, no, you have to say your name. Okay. So if I came to Karen, and let's say Usha is on this side of her, and I said front.
Sandy.
Oh, she's good, but I didn't say bumpity bump bump bump. And if I didn't have my coffee this morning. I don't drink coffee. I'll use that for an excuse. So you go around the circle, and I always give the kids one mess up in the beginning because it's really hard to do, actually. You have to really be thinking and concentrating. And so if the first one they get it wrong, that's their freebie. And then they get to try it again because it takes a little warming up practice. And if you don't say the name before the person in the middle says bumpity bump bump bump, then you trade places. You are then in the middle, and you get to work your way around the circle.
You'll catch on really quickly.
Yeah, we'll do it together.
Now I'm going to divide you into groups, and I would like for all of those who came from away from Portland, who live out of Portland this morning, to raise your hands, please. Okay, I would like for Marcia, Glenda, Tarina, and Mary to be part of the preschool group. The rest of you are the group who stays in here. Now all the Portland people, please raise your hands. Okay, I'd like for Vidura, Melissa, Helen, and Rose to stay in here, and the rest of you to go to the preschool room. Sandy will escort you to the preschool room and start you off in there, and Karen will lead the group in here, and we'll be in the back so that Bob can film it.
Right, bumpity bump bump bump.
Oh, sorry.
But you get a preview, so. It was correct, but she has to say it before I finish saying bumpity bump.
Oh my
bump.
God.
She's bad.
Everybody's changing their names all the time.
I know, you just, okay. Right,
Freedom.
bumpity bump. Think you got it. Okay, all right. Center, bumpity bump bump bump. You're Rose. You get a friendly. I'm in front of her.
Yes, she's
So center is yourself.
Oh,
So center is yourself. See, so we learn a lot just by running through it. Left, bumpity bump bump bump. Right. Front, bumpity bump bump bump. So I'm front.
Oh, I thought it was center. Oh, okay.
No, the center is yourself.
Okay, sorry.
Not that we're yourself centered, but you know, you get the.
Okay, say bumpity bump 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 faster so somebody else is in the middle.
Okay. Well, I want to give them a chance. Yeah. So, front, bumpity bump bump bump. I'm looking at this guy.
Oh, boy. Okay,
So you just have to say.
right, bumpity bump bump bump.
Freedom.
No, not quite.
No way.
Come on, be a sport.
So it's his right that he...
Right, no, but he just was a little slow. You finished saying.
Oh,
I'm confused.
You have to say their name before a person finishes saying.
Oh, I forgot to say bumpy. Left, bumpy bump bump bump.
Okay, you trade with her.
Left, bumpity bump bump bump. Right, bumpity bump.
Helen.
Center, bumpity bump bump. This hand, Priya.
Which knee?
Okay, left, bumpity bump bump bump.
Good door. It was too late.
God, it's
Correct, but too late.
Impossible. Right, bumpity bump bump bump.
My brain said it.
Lovely experience. Center, bumpity bump bump bump. Chung.
Too late though. Too late.
Left, bumpity.
Okay.
It's possible.
Center, bumpity bump. They're going to get faster.
Helen, would you go get the other group?
Okay. Right, bumpity bump bump.
Nobody. She left, not fair. Okay. Center bumpity bump.
Me. Left, bumpity bump bump bump. I'll take that one. Center, bumpity bump bump bump.
Right, bumpity bump bump bump.
You guys are all such good sports.
Front, bumpity bump bump bump.
Simran.
Left, bumpity bump bump bump.
Welcome to this is actually, I believe, the 6th class in Education for Life series. 2 of those were personal development weekends, and then this is the 4th of the Education for Life weekends. So the first weekend we had the essence of Education for Life, and the second weekend we had motivating children, or specific gravity, or progressive development, as you prefer to call it. The third weekend we had tools and stages of development. And today we're talking about energy. The flow of energy is the name of this class. And of course, you've heard me talking about energy, I think, in every single one of the classes, partly because it's a favorite topic of mine, partly because it's one of the most basic principles of Education for Life. And it's also a topic and a concept that's coming to the fore in society in general. In 1999, Time Magazine, you know they have a Man of the Year, or Person of the Year it is now, every year, right? And does anybody remember in 1999 they did the Person of the Century? Anybody remember that? And who do you think they chose? Albert Einstein. And why? This is from that article. Why, finally, is he so important to the age? Not because he personified brain power, not because he was an Einstein, but rather because he demonstrated that the imagination is capable of coming to terms with experience. Simply by gazing into existence, he concluded that time and space could be warped, that mass and energy were interchangeable. Mass and energy are interchangeable. Well, as I've said before, the ancient yogis and rishis taught and that consciousness was first. Consciousness gives rise to energy, and energy gives rise to physical form. So you think about in your own everyday life, you decide to send someone a birthday card. There's the thought. And then you put some energy into it, and you either make a card or you go to the store and you buy one, and then you have a physical form. And what we're going to be talking about today is seeing the class, your classrooms, if you're at home, seeing your home, if you're a parent, seeing the children as a group, and each individual child as an energy field. Not just a physical form with this behavior and this personality trait and that personality trait, but a constantly flowing, malleable energy form. And we know this is true We know we are energy forms. We're so little mass that, I think I already mentioned this in a different class, that as you sit on that chair, you think you are touching the chair, but actually nothing physical is touching the chair. It's just an energy field that is on the energy field of the chair. That the actual physical particles are so tiny that they're not touching. It's impossible for them to touch. Well, it's a different way of looking at things, isn't it? And we're going to be looking at things in a different way. But already, things are different all around us from how they used to be. For example, kids today, they take for granted the instant access to information through energy, don't they? It's just all right there for them. There was a young boy who was studying the Vietnam War, and his father thought he wasn't taking it very seriously, and said, I know he's not really serious about this. And the mother said, oh, he's been studying. She called to him in the next room and she said, who's Henry Kissinger? And he goes, I don't know, why? Is he on our caller ID? So this is Pickles, the comic strip Pickles. And we have Grandpa, crotchety old Grandpa, talking to his grandson. And he says, still bored, huh? The little boy says, yeah. Grandpa, you know, when I was your age, I could entertain myself all day with nothing but a stick. Little boy, they had sticks when you were a kid? Of course they did. Well, how much memory did they have? Less than a gigabyte, I bet. Thanks for indulging me there. So those of you who did the assignment, how many of you got to read Calm and Compassionate Children before you came today? How many of you have been able to do that? You know some of the things that are in that book about working with energy and changing the energy. Anybody have one that you particularly recall or that you enjoy using or that was new to you? Anything at all? Beth?
I think music.
Music.
Good one. I mean, it's not necessarily just singing it, but to be listening to it. So, I know at times if I'm driving and I'm in, rush hour, I know it's probably best to have something calm, but I tend to like something a bit more upbeat and higher. It probably isn't helping my aggravation sitting in traffic, but it's what I tend to enjoy. And then sometimes in the mornings I listen to calmer music at home, and it tends to get me ready for the day and slowly ease into things.
Did you notice the music I had on after Bumpity Bump Bump? Because Bumpity Bump Bump's a little stimulating, isn't it? You're all giggling, and so I put on some calming music. As far as the upbeat music when you're driving, I don't know about you, but if I've been teaching all day, I need upbeat to stay awake until I get home and can take a nap maybe. Anything else that you can work with energy using? Selene, that's one of your favorites here, Taking them out in nature, right? Nature really affects children's energy. Just opening the door and taking the kids outside will affect things in one way or another. Nature can affect energy in the classroom or in your home without even going outside. When it starts to snow, what happens? Any of you ever been in a classroom of kids when it starts to snow?
Oh, yeah.
The energy gets like this, doesn't it? It gets very excited and in a thrilling way, not agitated, but just excited. It's so great. This is in our part of the country. I'm sure in some parts of the country it doesn't have that effect at all. So using energy with children we could just tell you countless story after story after story, and a lot of times we just do things and then after the fact we look back on it and see how that was an energetic thing. So I'll give you an example of this. Karen used to have a student who had a lot of problems with attention, a lot of problems with self-esteem and low self-esteem, and therefore when anything was challenging it was just, I can't do it, and tears, and just a lot of problems with staying with the program in school. And it was exacerbated by family problems and not enough time to send the right food and many things going on. So she worked with she and Sonali both. Sonali joined the class later. when he was part of the class, and they really worked with it well. Nevertheless, there got to be times where they would call me up and say, I'm sending so-and-so over to the office. I'm going to call him Robert. It's not his name. I'm sending Robert over to the office. And in the early days, I would try to talk to him. And then as time went on, one day he came to the office, and I thought, you know, they always say, if you start to say, what did you do? Well, somebody else did something, not me, right? So I said, you know, I could just see this dark little energy cloud all around him. And I said, well, I was getting ready to go to the library. Walk with me. So he had no choice. So we walked out the door, and we were walking across the parking lot. And before we got to the street through the parking lot, he said, totally spontaneously, we were not talking. He said, I hit Jamie. I said, you did? He said, yeah, I hit him because he called me a blah, 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 blah. And it was just so amazing. And I just thought, whoa, you know, I could have spent 20 minutes talking to him and never have gotten to this point. But what happened? We moved. We got the energy moving through actually this time, actual physical movement. And once his energy got moving, he started processing. And instead of being defensive, he started sharing with me what the problem was. So this is the kind of thing that we can do as teachers and parents. In that case, I have to admit, I wasn't doing it consciously. Another time I did. We had a little boy who would, they're not always boys, but this happens to be, who had he would have sort of temper tantrum, meltdown types of things. And it came in the office one day, and I could see, boy, and we don't have kids come to the office that much. I'm just telling these stories to give you examples of how you can work with energy. And I could see that he was having what it would be known in Ayurvedic medicine. He was having a pitta meltdown. His whole body was flushed. He was red. He was crying. But I could see it was anger and frustration. And I went to the refrigerator and got our cold pack that we use when kids get hurt. And I asked permission, may I put this on your neck? I put that on his neck, and pretty soon he was calming down. And it worked so beautifully that then I gave him a popsicle. We happened to have some popsicles, some those icy type things in the refrigerator, and fruit juice popsicle. And that might not have been the best thing to do because I was rewarding bad behavior. But on the other hand, I felt he really needed it to get back into himself. He was so overheated and so agitated. And after we came back to that center, then we could talk about what happened and what different choices he could make next time. Those of you who've gotten to this chapter in Calm and Compassionate Children recall the story of the first time I ever consciously used music to help control, it's not the correct word, direct energy, was one time when I had a 5th and 6th grade class who had played outside in recess, and I hadn't been on duty that recess. And when they came back in, they were all agitated and all trying to tell me. I mean, they were all gathered around me, indignant. You know how they get when something's not fair. And it wasn't fair that the 3rd grade class monopolized the rope swing. And they were so agitated. And I said, before we talk about this, you need to all get a drink of water and sit down. We're going to have 60 seconds of silence, and then we'll talk about it. Because we practiced silence in the classroom, they knew how to do that. They had the control to do that. And while they were getting their water, I went and I put on a calming piece of music. I started playing it, sat down, let the 60 seconds go by. And they were actually grateful for the time. I don't mean they thanked me, but you could see them starting to breathe and calm down. And then I said, so we had this beautiful about 60 beat per minute music going, and I said, okay, now what happened? And a couple of people related the story and said, okay, so who is upset that we need to resolve this? And only 2 hands went up. And I was able to let the rest of the class go on with their lesson and take those 2 people into the conference room and resolve it. And if we had tried to resolve it right then through words, it would have been an endless blame game. Even if you use the techniques of nonviolent communication, which I'm all for, I still say if you work with energy first, those techniques work even better. First of all, change the energy. You can't solve a problem in the state that it was created in. You have to go to a different consciousness before you can solve a problem. So right now, I'm hoping that Sandy would pass out the handouts, because on the top there is, I hope, an optical illusion. Great. That I want you all to look at. So when you get this, if you've seen it before, please, I'm just treating you like you're my classroom of 5th and 6th grade, right? 7th, 8th, 9th. Don't blurt out, oh, that's a blah and a blah. Let everyone have a chance to discover. If you've seen it before, don't show it to anyone. Let people look at it for a little bit. The top sheet should be an optical illusion. See if you see two things in it. So I know you know it. May I borrow yours? I'm going to borrow this so Bob can get a read on it. So, how many of you see an old woman? Good. How many of you see a young girl? Now, does anybody need help seeing both of them? The old woman, this is her nose right here. And this is her mouth right here. But if it's a young girl, this mouth becomes a necklace, and this becomes her eyelash, and she's looking in the other direction. Does everybody see both? Okay, ask a neighbor to show you if you don't see both. Now, this is a very common optical illusion. You see it in a lot of books. But the point is, when you're looking at it, can you see both simultaneously? You kind of have to switch your eyes a little bit to see one then the other, one then the other. And sometimes the first time you look at it, it takes a moment, doesn't it? You know something else is there, but you can't quite see it. Do you have that experience? Well, the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I'm talking about an all-new paradigm of looking at what's happening with your kids, what's happening in life. It works not only with kids, it works with adults. If you're an administrator, it works with your staff. If you're a parent, it works with your family. When you start seeing things in terms of energy and patterns of energy, it's like all of a sudden you've discovered a whole new world. Like if you saw the old woman first, suddenly there's a young girl. And it was there all the time. You just weren't looking at it. It's there all the time. It's been there all the time. But if you start looking at it and playing with it, you'll discover, as I said, it's this whole new alternate world and way of living that you might not have thought about before. And as I say, all good teachers, all people who are in tune with people and work well with people, intuitively do a lot of this. But maybe don't speak about it in terms of energy. Now, in this class, we've already talked about levels of energy. That was class number 2, specific gravity. You remember the 3 levels of energy? The highest level, which is expansive and thinking of others and able to include others and uplifting, was called light. And that was high energy. It takes a lot of energy to be that way. And then the lowest energy of not wanting to do anything, of not being able to direct your energy or get going, was heavy. And then that stage between the two was ego active. So that was levels or amount of energy. And then in the class after that, we talked about tools and stages. And in a way, that's a quality of energy. Energy flows through us as human beings in many ways. But 4 basic ways are through the body. Through feeling, through will, and through intellect. And by the way, yesterday I watched the video of the last class and I misstated something, so let me correct that in this class if I may. I talked about stages of maturity in the Education for Life system, being the first 6 years are body, the next 6 feeling, and then the next 6 will. And I compared that to Waldorf. And what I said was wrong. I said Waldorf was the same, but they go to intellect, I'm pretty sure. I think the only people I know that consider a will stage starting at age 12 are Josette and Sambala Lovemore, who wrote a book that's going to be on the bibliography I give you today. But other than that, I don't know of any education systems or methodologies that speak of the will years before going to the intellect. So I wanted to correct that error that I made. So I was talking about levels of energy and qualities of energy, and that all is energy. I heard, this is so timely, you know how it is when you learn a new vocabulary word, you hear it everywhere? Well, in getting ready for this class, I was listening to NPR this past week, and I heard this interview with many people in the emergency room of George Washington University Hospital. And the story was on a harpist who would come there to play in the emergency room. Now, not in the waiting room, but in the emergency room where the people are actually being worked on. And her name is Joy Grossman, and she's hired, she's actually paid by the hospital to work in the emergency room. And she said when interviewed, "I'm secretly there for the nurses and doctors more than the teachers." I mean, more than the patients, excuse me, more than the patients. And then she said, "I'm a kindergarten teacher." That's her other paid job. And she said, quote, "My ear is very trained to listen for states of energy in a room. I'm thinking about how to calm energy down. I also listen for how to slow people down and slow the atmosphere in the room." And I thought, okay, here's an Education for Life teacher right there. She's probably never heard of Education for Life, but she's doing it. She's in tune with it. When we speak of energy, I think I've mentioned this in another class, but I just wanted to mention it again. Some people are like, well, exactly what does she mean by energy? I see energy, does she mean heat? Because heat's a form of energy, right? And it is a form of energy. Does she mean electrical energy? What does she mean by energy? And some other words that mean a similar thing that we could interchange for that are vibration, intention, atmosphere. A good way to think of it when you're working with kids is, what's the energy behind this? Instead of listening so much to the words people say, feel what's the energy behind the words, because kids often will say what you want to hear. You know, did you do your homework? May I have it? Adults do it too, don't they? How are you this morning? I'm fine. I don't know. And when you start tuning into the energy behind what people are saying, you can relate to them from your center to their center. You can't do it unless you get into your center, because if you're off in your emotions, how can you possibly expand enough to feel what they're feeling? I remember that one time in a junior high class that I didn't teach, but someone in Education for Life did teach, and she had a list of words that she didn't allow in the classroom. Now, if you remember, one of the chapters in my book, Calm and Compassionate Children, is high-mindedness. And that's one way to uplift energy, is to direct the attention toward uplifting things. You know, when you come in the morning and you say, "Whoa, look at the way the sunshine's hitting so-and-so's hair. You can see all the red highlights." And when you get kids to start noticing uplifting things rather than the down things, you know, and of course there's going to be plenty of that other type. Lorna's having a problem right now in her classroom with someone who, and this is so typical for a certain age, that bathroom humor and anything to the bathroom is, you know, you've got to talk about it. And it doesn't bring the energy, it doesn't produce a receptive learning atmosphere, let's say that. It produces agitation. But high-mindedness, keeping the mind up on uplifted things, does produce a relaxed learning situation. So, so I know where I was going with this. So she had some words that she didn't allow in the classroom, and some of them were words that had to do with bathroom humor, and of course a few others. And one day at school, a kid said, "I feel like I'm going to puke." And so after school, these two girls were discussing this, that so-and-so was sick today. And one girl said, "Well, he used one of those words that we're not allowed to use." And the other girl said, "Well, wait a minute, but he didn't use it to be gross. He used it because he literally was sick. So I think that's different." And I think personally that if kids can get this, we can get this. Love to tell the story about that I overheard Sandy Goodwin one time when a little boy came in from recess all indignant because someone did such and such. It was the classic, it was a the energy was, you know. And what Sandy said is, now, what is our rule about telling the teacher about what other people are doing? And he goes, okay, if it's keeping someone safe, I should tell you. If it's trying to get them in trouble, I shouldn't. Oh, okay. And he turned around and walked out the door. And this is what we're talking about. Tuning into the intention behind things is another way to look at energy. I wanted to just share with you a couple of other quotations about energy that I particularly loved, if I find them real easily. Here's another Einstein one. Matter is nothing but energy vibrating in a frequency low enough that we can perceive it with the senses. And this is from Rabbi, I can't really pronounce his name, but he's known as Reb Zalman. He's the founder of the Jewish Renewal Movement. And when asked, what does the word God mean to you? Here's his answer. The source of all life is a constant, unending flow of energy that animates all of life. The terms verb and process best describe this reality. God's energy flows everywhere. We cannot control this energy. All we can do is recognize it and get in step with it so that our very existence is in harmony with what is rather than at cross purposes with it. So I thought that was just lovely for a spiritual leader to define God in that way, as a flow of energy. Other words that we can use to describe energy, and this will give you another idea of what we're talking about. Energy can be calm or frenetic, purposeful or aimless and restless, serene or agitated, friendly or angry, expansive or contractive, interested or indifferent, inclusive or exclusive. And as I'm reading these, do you think of times you've seen the kids in one or the other, either your own children or the classroom? It can be thoughtful or careless, sincere or sarcastic, upbeat or depressed, intentional or instinctual, generous or selfish, harmonious or argumentative, kind or mean-spirited, creative or unimaginative or even destructive, light or heavy, safe or threatening, rhythmic or incoherent. And it can be value-neutral words such as physical or mental. These first ones, there were sort of values to each side, right? But these are value-neutral, physical or mental. It can be reserved or outgoing. It can be joking or serious. It can be inward or it can be outward. So these are things you're looking for and trying to pick up on. You know, there was I've heard this story many times, that there was a Chinese emperor who would travel from one, I don't know, state or zone or whatever of the empire to the next. And rather than looking at the books and seeing the financial accounting and interviewing the governor when he got there, what he would do was he'd ask to have the court musicians come in and play the music, because he said he could tell from that if things were doing well in that area or not. And of course, that music is nothing but vibration, because he believed vibration reflects the consciousness. And I know that as the principal of the school, that's what when I walk through the classroom, I'm not so interested in, I do look to see, well, what activity are the kids doing, and what are they working on, and is it multiplication, and are they doing group work or peer work or work alone? I look at all those things, but the main thing that tells me whether or not things are going well in that classroom is the energy. And by that, I mean all those adjectives I just described. If kids are engaged, not excited, not bored, not indifferent, they might be noisy, they might be quiet, they might be doing an activity in a large group, they might be doing an activity alone, they might be painting and creating, they might be doing multiplication tables. It doesn't matter. What matters is, what's the energy like? And here's the wonderful thing, everybody. when you get the energy right, it all just flows. There's just a wonderful flow that happens, and all things are possible. Because why? We're made to grow. We're made to evolve. The brain is made to learn. But it can only learn in certain states. It can learn in what's called, this is what Kane and Kane, let me be sure I give you this correctly. Renata and Jeffrey Kane, in their book, Making Connections, Teaching in the Human Brain, called Relaxed Alertness, is vital for learning to take place. And relaxed alertness includes both security and challenge. The kids both have to feel safe and challenged. And when we say safe, we mean, yeah, they know somebody's not going to try to push drugs on them or throw a spitball at them or but we also mean nobody's going to make fun of them. They're not going to be put down and embarrassed if they don't know the answer. They know if they try something new and they get it wrong, it's going to be treated as part of the learning process, not a grievous error that shows how dumb I am. And all of those things are so important, and you all know that because you're all heart-oriented people. So you would never have, a classroom or a home who did those things. But when we consciously create that sort of safety and then the right challenge, we consciously create a state of attentiveness. And how do we get to that state of attentiveness is called flow learning. And in a few minutes we're going to talk about flow learning. But first let's talk about what happens when the energy just gets stuck. Did Karen already tell you the story of her student who got stuck on handwriting? He absolutely refused to do handwriting. Do you all remember that story? And Tarina wasn't here, so he just would not do his handwriting, could not do. It was like pulling teeth. She would cajole, she would persuade. And then one day she thought, okay, wait a minute. Now, I can offer a reward to help a child get their energy started. You know, it's not the thing we want to do all the time. We don't want to make kids reward dependent. But I could offer a reward, and he is a feeling child. So here she's using information from class 2 on specific gravity, what's his level of energy. Then she's using it from class 3 on tools of maturity. He's a feeling child, and he loves to be touched. And she said, okay, if you do just this first line of letters here, I'll come over and I'll write the letters on your back. He loved to have the letters written on his back. And whoa, he sat down and whipped through those letters. And all of a sudden, what had been like this in the class, well, I mean, I don't mean she's literally. This isn't literal. I'm depicting energy, right? You know, do it. No, I'm not going to do it. Please do it. I don't want to, you know.
Doing it right.
Yeah. All of a sudden, it became this flow of energy where they're in cooperation. Because from her center, she felt, what's inside him? What's he feeling? How can I help him make that next step? And sometimes the energy does get stuck for thousands of different reasons. You know, like if the room is overheated, if it's after lunch. I remember if it's at the end of the day. Do you all remember, I think it was the very last handwriting class we had, so it's about 4:45 in the afternoon. You all have been here since 8:30 in the morning. And Karen was giving a wonderful handwriting class. Everybody's into it, but the room faced west, and we had the heat on because it was cold out, but then we all filled it up, and nobody turned the heat down. The sun was streaming in, heating it up more. And Karen noticed that everybody was looking sleepy. And I was in the back of the room, so I didn't know that. I just know that she said, okay, everybody, stand up. And we all stood up. And she said, okay, we're going to write our F's with our arms. Everybody hold your arm out and do a cursive F. And she had us doing all that, and I just thought it was part of her lesson plan. Later, she told me, everybody was going to sleep. I must have been boring them to tears. I said, no, I don't think you were boring them to tears. It was 4:45 in the afternoon, and the energy was going. We're not heavy people, but the energy was getting heavy, wasn't it? And so what's the answer when the energy gets heavy? Move. Action is the answer. And how many of you have ever had something happen in your class where it was like that and you realized nothing's happening? They're not hearing a word I'm saying. Has that ever happened? So, and what do we do? Okay, I only have 2 more things. Can you sit still and listen? And they go, And they sit still, but they're not. And maybe they're even listening. Are they receiving it? No, because they're not in that state of relaxed alertness anymore. And so this is why in our schools we can spend so much less time on academics than other schools spend. And yet our kids, when they are tested on academics, are on level or ahead of other kids. Why is that? Because we create the state of absorption, of receptivity, before we teach. We don't just try to teach over somebody's hurt and their feelings are hurt because of something that was said outside, or somebody needs water, or whatever the conditions are. So all the time we're thinking of, how can I change the energy when it's not right? So sometimes people get really sleepy and down. Sometimes they actually get negative. We give them something to do and they go, I can't do that. And if it's one or two people, they have a block and we need to figure out how to work with it. But Selene told us a story recently of how she asked the kids to do something in Spanish, and next thing she knew, she had 2 kids crying. And everybody was going, and she thought, oh my gosh, what did I do? I thought they were ready for this, but they're not. She didn't try to talk them into it. She didn't try to explain why they were ready. She didn't try to say, here's the reason you can do this if you try harder. Oh, don't say try harder to kids, because what does that mean? It means you're not trying, you know. You can say do your best. Did you know muscle testing shows that if you say to a person do your best, they're strong. If you say try hard, because try hard contains you might not succeed in it. Do your best, you can't fail at doing your best, you know. But I digress. I do that a lot, sorry. So Selene saw that, and what did she do? She said, oh, okay, put down your pencils, come to the back of the room. And she started playing a Spanish game with them that she'd played before, that she knew they knew how to play and they could be successful, and got them back on board before she tried to teach something else in the class. So what we want to do right now, because I think you guys are getting just a little bit hazy there, and I know I am, I need some water, is we're going to break up into groups, and we're going to have brainstorming groups. And what I want you to brainstorm together is 10 or 15 ways to change the energy in your class. So if it's negative, if things aren't going well, here's another example. You can often tell where the energy is going just by always by their body language. And there's just a certain, I don't know how to describe it exactly, but you can see 2 or 3 kids together on the playground, walking around, talking quietly, they're always looking down, and you know they're plotting and planning how to exclude somebody. Or something else, they're talking about somebody in a negative way. And it happens at other times too, and I know I walked into, and all my stories are about the intermediate class because, Tarina, you don't know this, but my office is in the same building. So, not only in the same building, but there's not really a door to close, right, Lorna? So I know all the things that go on in there. And I went in one day, and this was several years ago. In fact, Priya, we saw that student last night, who's much older now, teenager. And I saw him walking around talking to some of the other kids in that tone, that energy, that, I don't know how to explain it, except when you see it, you'll know it if you start looking. And I thought, what is he talking about? I knew it's up to no good. Something was wrong with it. So I kind of sidled close, pretending like I was looking somewhere else to hear what it was. And you know what he was talking about? He wasn't trying to make trouble. He's just trying to process. He had watched the news the night before, and it was right when Michael Jackson was arrested for sex abuse. So again, it's another example of how things that are the opposite of high-minded will bring the energy. They're not relaxed and alert and ready to learn. It's something else. They're troubled. He was troubled by it. And so how could I have changed the energy? And Sandy did it in that case. I walked over and said, Sandy, do you know what they're talking about? I told her, and she immediately, I won't tell you what she did because I want you to brainstorm. See what you can get. Maybe you can get 10 or 15 ways that you can just quickly change the energy in your class. And if you've read Calm and Compassionate Children, you might know a few from there. All of you who've been in the classroom know a few from what you tried to do. And if you don't worry, you'll be in a group with somebody who knows. So don't worry, all right? What group would like to share some of the ways you came up with to change the energy? Anybody volunteer to share? Beth.
Here, you want them all, or just a few? We don't have 12, but I'll start from the bottom.
All right.
We said laughter and jokes.
Absolutely. It's really good. Go to the public library. Keep some. If you're a second grade teacher, keep some of those dumb riddles. They love them. But any kind of joke book that you can pull out and tell them a joke. Go ahead.
Games.
Uh-huh.
Taking a breath.
Uh-huh.
Food and water.
Absolutely. We're going to talk a lot more about food a little later. Keep going.
Music.
Uh-huh.
Pleasant images.
Ooh.
Pictures. Thinking challenges or challenges, more or less, in your seat or whatnot.
Okay.
Super conscious living exercises.
Good.
Brain gym exercises.
Ooh. Okay, a different group that has a few different things. If you have a few different things, would you share them? Lorna.
We talked about reading a book or reading out loud. Games also, and the difference between familiar games that they're very easy to go into, and other games that are more challenging if you're learning. And those are different ways of changing the energy differently. Simple noticing things, and let's see. Oh, and projects. Rose was talking about her family loves doing projects together, and so she brings up let's all tackle this project together. They'll all get into it, unlike my children who don't do that. And I work with older kids that can read, so on the whiteboard I do challenges. I'll write just a silly word up on the board, or I'll put a math problem, or I'll do something. If they're all distracted and I won't say anything, I'll just start writing something up on the board which brings their attention, and then we can start talking about it together. I think the rest she mentioned.
Okay, any others? Did any group have something else? Helen, Melissa, did you guys have anything that wasn't mentioned already?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, we said candlelight.
Candlelight.
Lights off and on.
Turn off the lights. Anything?
Also changing environment.
Go outside. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sometimes Trina brings her preschool over to the office on a field trip. For them, that's a field trip.
Ringing a bell.
Ringing a bell.
Kind of a noise, attention, so they have focused attention, so they have something to go rather than be all over the place. Okay.
If you'll excuse me 1 second, I need to give Karen a message. Go get Sandy. It's time for her to give out the stuff. Any more?
I think I said freeze. Yeah, freeze.
Freeze.
Yeah, but that might be movement.
Mm-hmm.
Singing a song that's familiar.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Music. That's another form of music.
Yeah.
Instead of playing music, sing a song.
Sing
Mm-hmm.
a song.
Mm-hmm.
That's like
Mm-hmm.
grabs their attention. They know that what they're supposed to do at that particular time.
Good, yeah. So these are all absolutely great, valid ways. Also, there are different types of energy work that some of you may have heard of, and I'm not here to be a proponent of any of these, although I've tried all of them, and I've enjoyed all of them. And you never know, what's the placebo effect? You know, does it really work because we think it works? But at any rate, most of them involve movement and a coordinated series of movements. It's important that they're coordinated series of movements. So tomorrow or later, tomorrow I think it is, that Helen is going to be demonstrating super conscious living exercises. Most of you know those. And it's a coordinated sense of group of movements. That's important because the brain's a pattern recognition organ. So when we do things in patterns, it's laying down those pathways, those neural pathways that are important for learning. So I'm sort of stalling here because both Karen and Sandy are missing, and they are the next thing on the program.
Patterns are something that we brought up too, as different hand games and things that create patterns. That's a real great
Clapping games, yes. So that's a good one that, you can always have the kids pair up and create a pattern that they can do together, or you just do a pattern and let the class repeat it. But these are different type energy work modalities that have touched on into education and different elements of all of these. You can just pull from them real quickly and change the energy. So, but before we do those, Sandy has arrived, and she's going to give you a little something that might also change the energy. So, Sandy.
Also, you didn't give away what you were doing with your story. Do you want to give us the answer now?
The answer to the story about how she changed the energy when the kid was in the classroom talking about Michael Jackson. She said, I'm ready to read aloud now. And she started reading us the wonderful story that they're all involved in and they all want to hear. So just change the energy immediately.
So one thing that I used to do is I had a dog named Hannah, a big furry dog named Hannah that used to come to school with me a couple days a week. And she always changed the energy. And she was a real sweetie pie. So she was our mascot for years. If you look in the office at the school pictures, you'll see she's in there. In fact, one year she's up with the staff. Which was kind of true. So anyway, she was really sweet. And we don't have any real live animals for you today, but what we do have is we have stuffies. So you're going to get to choose a stuffy, and your stuffy is your pal for the day. So you need to decide how your stuffy and where your stuffy is going to be taken care of. So, you know, your stuffy can't be stuffed in your bag or, you know, just thrown under your chair or anything like that. So you need to make sure your stuffy is cared for. So you can find a nice seat. You can find it, you know, a little buddy to play with somewhere. You can stick it in your shirt or things like that. I put some pictures up here of the year that I had 4 7th and 8th grade boys. This was in Washington, D.C., and we went to the Museum of Natural History, and they bought these little tigers, very much like the little tigers in here, and you could see this was on the subway. He had his stuffy the whole time in his shirt like this, hanging out, or they had these bags carried around. They had them in their bags here. Here we were at dinner. You have to look close at this one. Their stuffies were all on the table, all together in the, you know, all 4, you know, so they were all together in the middle of the table, and whenever, you know, something important happened, you know, the stuffies got up and they were a part of it, and it was just hysterical to me to see these, you know, 7th and 8th grade boys so into their stuffies like this, and it was a sweet trip. So, really can change the energy, and you know, when you foster a school environment like that where that's okay, then it's perfectly fine. They didn't think anything about it. They weren't the least bit self-conscious about anything or anything. Did you tell the Edsel story yet?
I did not tell the Edsel story. You want to tell it?
Well, one of the years, what I'll do is I'm gonna pass these around, and you can take one and pass the bag along. So feel free to see what your choices are in there. You know, every year we have our Joy-a-thon, and at the end of the Joy-a-thon, all the kids can come up and choose a prize for participating. And so one year, or one year anyway, you had stuffies were one of the choices, and then there were other things, you know, pencil holders and, you know, little toy balls and different things so that, you know, everybody would have a choice. And so that year, the first person to choose was he in 6th grade that year? 6th grade boy. And she just, you know, was glad that she had all these other things so everybody would have something. He came up, he chose a stuffy. That was his first choice out of all the things he could have had. And so after that, he set the precedent, you know. Oh, it's okay. And so a lot of the kids then chose stuffies like that. And it just sweetened the whole environment. So you all have your little charges there.
Now, sometimes in Sonali and Karen's class, the kids get distracted by the stuffies that they bring to school. They can bring stuffies to school, and occasionally, they bring them so much, they're not usually, but occasionally they get distracted. So then Sonali or Karen will say, okay, the stuffies are going to have a play date. Let's take them all over there and put them in the basket, and they can play together while we do our math. And the kids know there's no negotiating. We have to do that, and then we can go pick them up for recess. So we're going to demonstrate now, just very quickly, a few of the modalities of energy work that you could do with your kids. So who was going to do brain gym? Was that Who was going to do body talk? That was Karen. What were you doing, Sandy?
EFT.
EFT. Okay, let's start with EFT.
How many of you have heard of EFT before? Great, a couple of you have. Okay, it's called the Emotional Freedom Technique, and it's a way of working with the energy centers in the body. It's reminds me, it's similar to
The tapping.
yeah, it's tapping on different parts of the body, meridians of the body. And so one of the things, in fact, we even have a magazine, one of those free parent magazines. I think it's Northwest.
North
Family Matters.
Yeah, and they every month, I guess it comes out, it's got an article on EFT, and they even have a little stuffy, speaking of stuffy, bear called Tappy Bear. And it has the little points to tap on the bear so you can help you remember, and you can also make sure your bear is tapped down. So
Do you have that in your school, the Tappy Bear?
we don't. We've seen it and admired it in the
I know.
magazine, though.
Yeah,
So
as far as I've gotten.
So there's the basic tapping down technique, and so I'll have you do it with me. And it starts with, now the tapping is done not so that it hurts or causes bruising, but it's significant enough that you can really feel it when you're doing some tapping. So you're going to need both of your hands now. So make sure your stuffy is safe and that it's not going to fall. Okay, great. And so you're going to take both fingers and we're going to tap right here on in the bony part of the eye, like between the eye and the eyebrow. And you want to give it some good taps there. They say at least 7. I like to do a lot more than that. And then we're going to move to the bony part next to the eye on the temple here. And then to the bony part under the eye. And then you can move to one hand and go underneath the nose. And underneath the lower lip. And then you move down to just below the collarbones. You need both hands again. And then this is the fun one. This is going to be about 6 inches beneath your armpits on the sides of the body. And then on the outside of the hand. So we're going to do both sides. We're going to tap on the kind of the karate chop area is what they call it. And then the other side. Yes. And then relax. Anybody feel any difference in your energy? You all look very peaceful. This is actually a piece of a longer routine. There are other parts of it that if you're interested in learning, you go online, you can download his whole beginner's guide free, and you can look at it. And actually this part even has more. Before the karate chop, there's some parts on the fingers, but the one we did is considered just the real basic one that you can do to help kids calm down and focus.
Thank you, Sandy. Before Karen does body talk, I just want to mention again that when you have a whole group do something together like that, it brings everybody into coherence. Now, coherence and entrainment are words that are used in science, and I don't know that I use them exactly correctly, but I do know that people such as Carla Hannaford, who has a PhD in biology, speaks of it a lot in her book called Smart Moves. And I know that Michael Mendiza, I don't know if you've heard of him, he's sort of the heir apparent to Joseph Chilton Pierce. In fact, I think he lives in Nevada City, Michael Mendiza. And all these people talk about how important coherence is within the person. That is, that your heart rate, when your heart rate is coherent, that means regular, then your brain waves are coherent and your breath. And each influences the other. You all know that. When you slow down your breathing, like in slow breathing techniques, then your heartbeat slows down, and your brain waves change as well. Music can do it to you because music directly affects the respiration rate and other physiological things. But there's also a concept of coherence within a group. And so when we finished that, we had all done that together in the same rhythm. And it's really good to start the day with something like, it doesn't have to be that. There are 1,000 things, even calisthenics. As I said, I'm not here to sell this technique and to say, this is the be-all, end-all that will solve everything. It might be that just some random taps that you create yourself would have the same effect on the class. I don't know, but I do know that these have a very calming effect. Now, Karen's going to do one from Body Talk, and that we actually, do you want to tell about the Body Talk experiment at our school?
Oh, yeah. Several years ago, a group of local Body Talk practitioners contacted the school. They were looking around for opportunities to do kind of a research project with children to see what effect, if any, Body Talk would have. And so we got associated with them somehow, I'm not sure how, and agreed that they would come twice a week for 8 weeks to work on any child whose parents approved. And they would do what was called the access technique, and there's 5 techniques within that, and I'm going to teach you one in a few minutes. And it was very interesting. They would come, and it would take maybe 5 or 10 minutes with each child. Sometimes they would just do the first 4, and once a week they'd do the whole 5. And it was very interesting, especially because once it was all over, when they asked kids at the time, they would say, well, did you notice any difference? How do you feel now? And the kids would kind of go, well. But once the 8 weeks was over and they weren't going to be coming anymore, we got so many comments from the kids about, when are they coming back again? I just felt more, they had a difficult time finding words to describe what effect it had had on them. But maybe you can remember somebody's comment, I can't remember exactly, but they felt good. Sandy Ken, which was?
Yeah, actually I noticed that the kids that tended to have trouble focusing and trouble with attention, they're the ones who liked it the most. And I know when they would come was always during our math period, and so they'd be at the back of the room, we'd be doing math, and one by one or wherever they'd go back and do that. And I remember one student in particular saying that, oh, I love it when they come. I can always focus on my math better. I can do my math better afterward. And they did. My class loved it, and they really, really missed it when they were gone. And we continued to practice some of the things you can do on yourself fairly often after that. In fact, Usha was mentioning the other day that she just happened to see one of the older boys, one of the boys in these pictures, doing that to himself on his own at one point when, she said she caught him doing that. It was like, oh my gosh, who knew that they would just even do it on their own, without being directed.
Mm-hmm. The most important of the 5 techniques that make up the Access program, which was, Body Talk is very extensive and complicated, but they've taken 5 of the techniques from it and put them together in a simplified version that anybody can learn and that can be done by anyone, anywhere. And it does not take long to learn. I'm going to teach you one of those, and it's considered to be the most important of those 5. It's called cortices. And the purpose of this particular one is to integrate the 2 hemispheres of the brain and to just help develop coherence among all the parts of the cerebral cortex. And if that happens, obviously you can function better in a number of ways. And you can do it on another person, and you can just do it on yourself, and we'll just do it on ourselves today. And I'll tell you what the difference is if you're doing it on someone else. The first parts of it are identical. So, and before I do that, I wanted to tell you just one incident when you can use cortices as part of a first aid technique as well. I had a first grade student who was extremely reactive. He was pretty new to us. And anyway, one day we were at snack, and he had a little can of Vienna sausages, and he took the lid off. It was one of those pull-tab metal lids, and he took it off, and as he was reaching in, it was very sharp. He just sliced open his finger, and it's blood's gushing out. It hurt, of course, but mostly I think just seeing the sight of the blood is just, he's freaking out. and crying and wailing. And we took him up to the office and sat him on the counter and put pressure on him and all that. And then I said to him, because we'd done this in class a few times, I said, would it be okay if I do cortices on you? And he, oh, yeah. And so I did, and it was just amazing. In just the couple minutes it took to do that, he calmed down significantly. His breathing rate slowed way down. He was, you know, still crying a little bit, but not the major sobs and not that freaked out sort of energy he'd been exhibiting before that. So you begin, you just use your two hands. You begin at the back of your skull. You know, there's that little dip. And you just put one hand there. You're going to use your other hand to tap. And we're going to tap the top of our head and then our sternum around the heart center. You want to be sure that you're crossing the midline of your skull. So you don't want to be tapping this way. You want to be going crossways. Okay, and you do one inhalation and exhalation while you're tapping on your head. So breathing slowly. And then one breath on your sternum. And again, kind of crosswise. Then you want to move up one hand width. And for some people, it's easy just to switch hands as you do that. You don't need to. Another hand width. And if you get to the part where your hand's covering up the area where you've been tapping, just move to a different section. Just be sure that you're continuing to cross the midline. And when you get to the point where you're just above your eyebrows, pause until we all get there. Part of the timing difference is the length of your breath. If you're breathing a little faster, and also the width of your hand, the size of your head. Okay. Now the final part is
Karen, my mic needs to pick you up.
Oh. The final part is with the two sides of your head. If you just put your hands above your ears with your fingers pointing toward the back. If you were doing this on someone else, you would have them hold one hand and you would hold the other side. So you have a free hand to tap. When you're doing it to yourself, obviously you don't have three hands. So you imagine that your hand is still holding the side that it's not while you tap. And then with the other side. And that's all. And it's very good for stress. So if you're, for instance, in a traffic jam and you can have your hands off your steering wheel for a few minutes, sitting there anyway, it's a great thing to do. And you can do it multiple times with no problem.
So probably the most well-known of these is Brain Gym. And I don't want to spend a lot of time teaching you all these things. This could be one whole day's class itself, just these different energy work modalities that you can do with kids. But I used to study Brain Gym extensively some years ago, and I have a lot of information. If you want more information, you can look at this folder. And I have a wonderful testimonial for Brain Gym, because when I was really studying it and using it a lot with kids, Priya's son Keith was in my class. And he's presently an airline pilot, and so
He's a corporate jet pilot.
corporate jet pilot. He flies moneyed people around. So you want to tell what he said it happened to say to you at dinner this week?
Well, actually, he was up. He was up just this week, and we were sitting at the table, my dinner table, with Bruce and Carol Malner. I don't know how many of you know Bruce and Carol, but Bruce was the principal of Ananda School for years, and Carol taught the junior high there. And she's also an author. They've both written a number of books that are teacher guides and so forth to the Dawn publication books. All that to say, we were at the table, and somehow Brain Gym came up, and he said, and he's 25 years old, 25-year-old guy. He said, you know, I still use Brain Gym when I'm in the plane and we're in bad weather, or I know that I need to focus. He says I start doing some cross crawls, and I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, we were all just, because I knew he had done that. He'd been a ski racer in high school, and he would do these strange things at the top of the mountain, and the kids would say, what in the world are you doing? And he did very well, but it just really helped him focus. It helped settle him down, and he says, I don't know how it works, but it just seems to work. So that was just this week he told me.
And I think Helen's going to, are you going to do figure eights as part of your thing at some point? Yeah, so we're not going to talk more about that, but Helen will demonstrate some Brain Gym with you. Just to say, and then recently we came across energy medicine, which is Donna Eden. You may know of Donna Eden, who's written the book Energy Medicine and One Energy Medicine for Women. And she has some great techniques that we've been using with the kids. And all of these can be found online. And just to say, that these are different modes being used by different people at this time. Truth is universally rooted, and people are becoming more aware of energy work and how that might affect us. And I say, if you don't buy into it and believe it's really doing anything, it is doing something, even if it's the placebo effect, and it just has to do with touch and rhythm and doing a coordinated sense of movements. But I would really like to fly on a jet with somebody that I knew had just done Brain Gym. That's all I've got to say.
Can I say something about the EFT?
Quickly, please.
Very quickly. My 70-year-old father discovered it on the internet, and it's changed his life. He's off medications. He's developing, interest in introspection and quality of life.
Now that is a testimonial. All of this works for all ages, of course. It's Bob, our videographer, was saying to me at break. He said, "This isn't just about teaching. This is about everybody." I said, "Yes, I know that. Thank you. Yes." So we're still discussing how can you change energy, and another way is, of course, anything physical. So, do I have a volunteer who would like to do a 1-minute challenge? Somebody who's very physical, who doesn't mind running around. All right, Simran. Simran's.
Take this good in my hand, just pop it up.
Simran. Let's just hope I can find it now. Simran is dying to move around here. Thank you. Here we go. I found it. All right. Now, you would do this not with probably a class of 30, but if you had a class of 12, you could do this all at the same time. You'd have to get everybody situated so they're not close together. And I'd set a timer and say, okay, I'm going to yell out these directions. You do them as fast as you can, and let's see how long it takes. The first time I'd time it, and then the next time I'd say, let's see if it took 55 seconds last time. Let's see if this time we can do it in 53. So, it's called the 1-minute challenge. I'll tell you what to do, and you do them as fast as you can. On your knees, on your hands and toes, 2 push-ups. On your feet, 3 jumping jacks. Hit the deck. 3 hit the deck means lie down. 3 sit-ups. On your stomach. On your side. Up, running in place. Touch your toes 3 times. Sit down on your seat. On your back. Bicycling, legs in the air like you're bicycling. On your stomach. Stand up. Jump up and down 3 times. 2 jumping jacks. Yell, fun! Fun! Spin around. Sit in your chair. Rest. If your class is sleepy, they're ready to go. But they're also just a little bit, so then you might want to do something to help them concentrate. So class, we're going to count by threes. Ready? Everybody do this. 3, 6, 9,
12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30.
Good. So adjust that to the level of your class. These math challenges work absolutely great. If it were a younger class, you could start them out counting by fives, and then when they got that was too easy, you could make it more complicated. And we could say, let's count by fives, but every time you hit a multiple of 10, I want you to clap. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Do you see how these rhythmical movements create coherence and they create focus? Every one of you, your eyes were right here because you wanted to be with the group. You didn't want to be clapping somewhere else, did you? Mental math is great, so I could say 3 times 3 plus 3. Yell it out if you know the answer.
12.
Excellent. 5 minus 1 times 2.
8.
All righty. So these are in the concentration chapter of Calming Compassionate Children. Another one is to do 3 directions in a row, and I'm going to say the 3 directions, and this will really make you focus and listen, especially if you're a kid. You can't start them until I'm finished with all 3, okay? So here's what I want you to do. I want you to, don't start, bend down, touch your forehead to your knees, sit up, clap, and smile. Ready, go. Excellent. 2 seconds. And in the middle of your day, just in the middle of class, when you realize, whoo, everybody's gone, here's what you can do. So there are, and I wanted to write a book one time. The first book I started to write was called 101 Ways to Change the Energy. I still have all these pages of that, and I found that in my files as I was getting ready for this class. There are 101 ways to change the energy, and one of your handouts gives a list of probably 40 or 50 of them. And you will see more of those tomorrow. We're going to be showing you a DVD of all the teachers in our school working with their classes. So you'll see more of them then, and some of them are described in your handouts. And you've already seen them. Do you remember when in a recent class, one of the classes, Karen did wiggle and stop? Do you remember wiggle and stop? Everybody hands up. Wiggle, stop. Wiggle your whole body. Stop. Now, you guys do that easily. But let me tell you, for a 5-year-old, that is a huge challenge to stop. That requires self-control. So you have to adjust for the age you're working with. All that goes without saying. So I'm going to give you 5 principles of energy today. And we've already done one of those. And the first one is, they're not in really, I think, any particular order. The first one is, and these are on a handout, so you don't have to write it down unless you want to. Sometimes when the energy gets stuck in a place that it's not helpful, you just need to change the energy quickly using any of 101 ways to change it. And now number 2. Children learn best in a state of relaxed alertness. And we talked about that a little bit already. As I say, I'm not a scientist, but some scientists, like Michael Mendiza, has actually measured the brain wave rate, whether it's delta, alpha, theta, all this. People who studied these things say that there are certain states of awareness that are optimal for learning. There used to be this thing called, what was that called? It was a big business all over the country, super learning, to help people do better in school. Remember super learning? And that's one of the things they were working with, really, was creating those optimal states so that you could focus. There is an actual certain flow of energy to create that calm receptivity. And in Education for Life, we call that flow learning.
It's right on the floor.
These were developed or named by Joseph Cornell, author of Sharing Nature with Children, and these are in his book, Sharing Nature with Children, Volume 2. Not in the first one, but Volume 2. And we use them to lesson plan. We use them to plan these workshops. And all systems of education have a certain way of lesson plan. You have to engage the kids' interest first. They all have it. But this is our form of it. Awaken enthusiasm is the very first one. So this morning, what did we do? Very first thing to awaken enthusiasm. Bumpity bump, bump, bump. Not only did it awaken enthusiasm, but I hope it also created connections between you, because safety is so important. Being in an atmosphere where you belong, where you feel connected to other people. You need to create that in your classroom by having activities like this. So we started with the awaken enthusiasm, which both got the energy going through movement and created connections. They don't always create connections, but that one happened to. And then you came back in, and because you're adults and you're really motivated, all I had to do was have the music on. I didn't have to do anything else. But later on today, I'll give you some others, and we just did some. We just did the counting by threes, focus attention, the concentration challenges. There are just multiple ways to focus attention, and tomorrow Helen will be going through a whole series of how she does circle time. And she'll start with an activity that awakens enthusiasm, she'll move into focus and attention, and then she'll give the kids a direct experience. So today the direct experience was somewhat you're hearing the lecture, although you don't really call that experience. It's an auditory experience, and you better not stop there as a teacher. And we also had you get in groups and talk. So that's an experience where you're exchanging ideas, you're discovering new things. If you were teaching math, you might be having them work with manipulatives or just working out problems. If it were, I wanted to tell you, Karen did a 100 day recently. It was the 100th day of school. Every year she celebrates the 100th day of school. And she just was a genius on thinking of all these activities that awakened enthusiasm and focused attention that had to do with 100. So they came into this room, and what did you do with the bean bags 10 times?
Oh, we did that beanbag game. It's on the DVD, where we're in a circle, and you each have a person you're going to throw to. You say their name just before you toss the beanbag to them. And we had 10 people. We had a lot of absences that day, so even with Melissa and me, we still only had 10 people. So we each, after we'd thrown the beanbags each 10 times, that was 100.
And then she had some sort of focus attention activity, and then she had them practice 10 groups of 10 seconds of silence. So they had 100 seconds of silence. And they were so into it by that time, and they were so into what's 110 times 10 and all that, that they actually succeeded in practicing 100 seconds of silence. So in your handouts, you do have a sheet on flow learning. You might want to look at that now. And the first one, awakening enthusiasm, and we will talk more about this when we do the lesson planning weekend in April. April's lesson planning. So we'll talk more about how do you apply this to a specific lesson. But when you're doing, life has rhythms, right? I mean, everything has rhythms. Your day has rhythms. School has rhythms. The workshop has a rhythm. And everything in life, if it stayed steady, we'd be bored out of our minds, wouldn't we? You go to a movie, and what happens? There's tension, there's action, and then there's resolution. And if there weren't, the movie would be totally boring. So we need to bring that concept into the school, into your classroom, into your home, and think about the rhythms. That's one reason rituals are important, to create those rhythms. So we're creating a rhythm here by awakening enthusiasm. Should be energetic and playful. Your focus attention activity is more observational and creates receptivity, because you're having to focus, observe carefully the leader, or focus in your mind if it's doing a mental math problem. In a minute we'll do a song that focuses attention. The direct experience should be absorbing. You should be engaged. The children should be engaged. The flow learning handout, some people are still looking for it. It has a waterfall on it. And stage 4, the last one, is share inspiration. And sometimes we forget to do that in school. It's so important to have an opportunity for the kids to share. It can be a small group sharing. It can be with the whole class. It can be what inspired you about this, what was fun about this, what was the best thing, what were you grateful for. It can be sharing experience, can even include, you guys, it can be writing your paper and reading it aloud to the class. It might even be just the teacher reading the paper and getting back to you on it. You would certainly want to respond, or it's not a shared experience if there's not a response. Even if you're a really masterful teacher, a test should be shared inspiration, because you should have the kids so prepped and ready for it that they go through it, go, wow, I know this, wow, I know this, wow, I know this, and they're so eager to show you what they knew. And again, we will talk more about this process of flow learning in the lesson planning session. But I also wanted to tell you that, and some of you may know this already, that there is a concept increasingly used in psychology today called flow. Have any of you heard of flow? Yes, some of you have. And this, as far as I know, it was coined and developed by a man named Mahai. I have to look, because it's one of those names that has a lot of consonants. And I always have so much material, it takes me a second to go through and find what I want. So excuse me a second. This man is a professor of psychology he started out at the University of Chicago, but he's now at Claremont College. And they give there both a master's degree and a doctorate in positive psychology, because following in the tradition of Abraham Maslow, they believe in studying not the abnormal people, but the supernormal people, the people that perform best, the people that seem to be happy and joyful and well-adjusted. What can we learn from them that we can all benefit from? And he's created there something called the Quality of Life Research Center. So he talks about this concept called flow, and it occurs in life when our attention becomes ordered and fully invested, and because of the total demand on the psychic energy, a person in flow is completely focused. There's no space in consciousness for distracting thoughts, irrelevant feelings. Self-consciousness disappears, yet one feels stronger than usual. The sense of time is distorted. Hours seem to pass by in minutes. Now, you've all probably had some experiences like that. And if you think about it, in your classroom, if your kids really get into a project and suddenly you say, it's time for recess, and they look up and say, already? Or somebody's really into this art and they don't speak or look up for a long time. I imagine Marcia's classes are a lot like that. Because, and all the self-consciousness is gone. It's not, look, teacher, what do you think? It's just the process. It's just the flow of energy. You know, and you could think of it like, you've heard about athletes experiencing it. When they say that they're just into the zone. That's their quote, their phrase for it. I was in the zone. And that's how the ideal classroom, we should be in the zone at least 2 or 3 times every single day. And it's a challenge, but you can do it. When you use these principles, it's not that hard to do. I go into the classrooms and I tell you, it happens in our school, I would say the majority of the time, at least half the time. It is amazing. And another way to put it is the kids are engaged. There are no distracting thoughts of what's he thinking of me, and you know, I'm hungry, and because we make sure they're well fed and they're hydrated, etc. But also the child has to be very motivated. We'll talk about that in a minute. His name is Mahai Csikszentmihalyi. Mahai Csikszentmihalyi. And he's written 3 or 4 or 5 different books, but the one that I love the best is Finding Flow, The Psychology of Engagement with Everyday Life. You're welcome to look at that. He says that it's a full involvement of flow rather than happiness that makes for excellence in life. Happiness being the happiness you get when you get a desire fulfilled. He says, and we all know this to be true, that does not compare to when you're engaged in doing something you want to do to the point that you're identified with it and you lose self-consciousness and time. You even lose all sense of time. Instead of waiting, this is again Csikszentmihalyi, instead of waiting for an external stimulus or challenge to grab our attention, we must learn to concentrate it more or less at will. In order to experience flow, that's what you need to be able to do. And that's what an Education for Life school it is all about. It's about creating in the child that power to control attention, which they take out into life in every area. It goes way beyond the academic scene. It goes into so many areas. Any thoughts or questions about flow before we go on? And actually, I have one more to tell you before we have Helen come up. And that one is, and it's on the handout, overcoming inertia is difficult. Inertia, the state of no movement. Haven't you all experienced that with your kid when they absolutely are in an I won't mood? Have you ever experienced it with yourself? Of course. I know mine is when the house is messy and I come home and I'm tired and and I'm like, oh, I just ate and I want to clean up the kitchen, but I want to sit down more, and I'll go, okay, this is a game I play with myself because I really want to go sit down. I'll say, I'll put up 3 things, and then if I'm really too tired to keep going, I will go sit down. So I trick myself into moving, and I put 3 things away, and about 2/3 of the time, what happens? And then I just start putting everything away. So this is what we need to do with kids. So you said it's okay to trick them into getting the energy going, all right? Give you an example. It snowed. Kids are like, ooh, let's play in the snow, let's play in the snow. Lauren knew right away that they needed to play, they needed to go outside to get the fresh air, and that then they'd have that calm, receptive state so she could teach the rest of the day. So she says, okay, we're going to go out and play in the snow. 2 kids say, I don't want to. I want to stay inside and do math. Well, they said that because they knew that might get a yes. They didn't say, I want to sit around and laze around and talk to my friend, because that. So Lorna came to the office and said, 2 kids don't want to go out and play with the snow, so I'm going to leave them. Is it okay if I leave them in? You know, we don't ever leave kids unattended without some adult, in earshot knowing they're there. I said, that's okay, Lorna, but you tell them that I will only watch them if they go outside with you for 10 minutes. And after 10 minutes, they can come back inside. What do you suppose happened? Do you think that in 10 minutes they said, I want to go back in now? No, because once they got over the inertia and went outside, they were having a ball. We have a wonderful class photo. Any of you are on our newsletter list, and if you would like to be, tell Rose, give her your email. She has your email. Just tell her you'd like to be. You saw a picture of them that day. Once they got into it, and that's why those of you who've done writing workshops, those teachers who've done writing workshops, that you know that about teaching writing, that they say when you give a kid a topic to write on, and they remember, you know how they'll say, I can't think of anything. You know how hard it is to start. And they say, just have them write anything, even their name. Just have them do handwriting. It's this principle. Once you get over the inertia and open the tap of energy, then the flow itself will bring more energy, and pretty soon, this happens every time the kids start to write something that makes sense. If you just make them write, just make them move. We can use that with ourselves and with others in so many ways. The Hunter thing with the handwriting was an example. Another example, long years ago, Karen had a student who would just melt down at math time. He could not start. He could not make himself start. Nothing would work. She knew he could do it, but he couldn't start. Finally, she had this brainstorm, and she took the math sheet she wanted him to do. She wrote down 2 problems, and she gave him just those 2 problems. Said, you just need to do these 2 problems today. They were done. Oh, wow, look at that. I bet you could do 2 more. Want to try? Sure. 2 more. And it worked. He did the whole sheet by 2, 2, 2. Then the next day, 3, 3, 3. Eventually, by getting the energy going, he was able to prove to himself that he could do it. So sometimes you have to trick the class, trick a kid. It's more important that the energy get going in any way than they do the exact thing you're asking them to do. If they can't do that, any way that you can get them moving, energy started, even to the point of, will you take this to the office for me? And the kid's like, oh yeah, good, a chance to get out of here. But you know what happens? They come back and sit down, and they've moved, and all of a sudden they start doing something. It's just amazing how this works. Now, corollary of this, sometimes the kids who have a lot of energy, those high ego active kids, or even light kids if you're doing things that they don't think are worthwhile, And these are levels of energy, Tarina, that we talked about earlier. Sometimes what will happen is their energy's like everywhere. They don't stop, right? Whoa. And it's real easy as a teacher to think of that person as the what? Sit down and be quiet, you know? That's the if I just, you know, when they're absent, everything goes so well. And it's true. I'm not saying, you know, that is the absolute truth. I've experienced, every one of you has experienced it. But I have to tell you, it doesn't help you. It doesn't help us to think that way, does it? What we have to think is, okay, this child has an abundant amount of energy. How do I help them redirect it? So if the energy's there, but it's going in the wrong directions, you don't want to clamp on it. You think, how can I redirect it? And the way I like to talk about this is the corollary of the rule of overcoming inertia is difficult, so do anything you can to get it moving. The corollary is it's easier to tame a rambunctious puppy than to breathe life into a dead dog. And if you've ever had a dead dog in your class, you know what I mean. It's a challenge to redirect. But after Helen demonstrates her little thing, I'll end with some ways that you can do that. So Helen is going to come up, Helen Gorman, our kindergarten teacher, and she's going to do some little activities with us that I'll just let her describe what she's doing and why she does them. This will be like a little demonstration of some of the things that awaken enthusiasm, focus attention, and so on.
Steffi's going to do it with her.
I would like that everybody just takes a really deep breath. Another one. One more. Just for 1 minute, gather where you are, where your thoughts are. Just gather everything into the center if you can. Going to be your poem. It's a chant actually, I believe. Teach me to give smiles to all, Father Divine. Teach me to smile freely always. Teach me not to laugh at anyone, but to laugh kindly with them. Teach me never to hurt anyone, even with a false smile. Bless me with the grace to make others happy just as I wish to be myself. Happy as I wish to be myself. Right? One way to start. Usually I have kindergarten, so it's more physical. So I'm going to change the energy so you get to go up. Alright. We're going to start leg in front, so those are little ones. Leg in back, leg sideways, over, up. Pretend to put it down, because we don't want to put it down. Pretend. You want to make that leg real tight. Up, down, up, down. Very good. Now you can put it down. Okay, since we did it on one leg, let's make sure we balance. So it's going to be the other leg as well. Front, back, over, up, down, up, down. One more since you're so good. Up, down. Thank you. All right. Let's see if we can cross, touch our knee. Very good. I see you can do it. My gosh, look at how good you are. Yes. Okay. A little bit higher here. Good. Now let's head high to our feet on the other side. So you want to put it over here and say hi.
Hi.
The other one.
Hi.
Yeah, you're doing really good. Oh, there. No, that hand, yes. The other hand. There you go. All right. So we got it. Good. And another thing to concentrate. I see some of you are not paying attention. So let's help us with just uncurl our ears. That really helps you. Sometimes when it's just hard to pay attention, water will help you, so feel free to take and go get water anytime or uncurl your ears. Another one that helps you to pay attention is you're starting here, going right around your ears and hop up. Go do it again. Right around your ears and hop out. And also another one that I like to tell them is just cross here and right under the collarbone. You want to just, so anything that is crossed. Recently, I did just the energizing exercises with all of my kids from Paramahansa Yogananda, but I do them a little bit differently. And certain things I will leave out just because for them it's hard or goes in the wrong direction. Okay, so double breath. And then we're going to tense this part of the body and the lower part here, and we're going to go from low to high, sorry. So 1, 2, 3, and you're going to let go. 3, 2, 1. One more, you guys are doing so good. 1, 2, 3. Let go. 3, 2, 1. And make it a little shorter too. And let's see if we can do it on the other side. Lower arm and
Calf.
Okay. Okay. 1, 2, 3, really hard, and then let go. 3, 2, 1. Let's do it one more time. 1, 2, 3. 3, 2, 1. So good. Okay, let's see our shoulders. We want to roll them. 1, 2, 3. And the other side. 1, 2, 3. And you're going to do our throat. I'm making a really funny face here, but it really helps you in case you have a sore throat or you ever feel there's one coming on. You want to 1, 2, 3. And then you're going to have just one side. If you can. There you go. That's a good funny face. Yeah. Right. Over here. Good. Now let's see if we can, with tension, just make small circles. Good. The other way. Big circles. 1, 2, 3. Yes, very good. Now comes the part you guys really enjoy and like. Kind of go like this. Good. And we're going to put our legs aside a little bit and just, this is our tree. This is not going to move. Just the top. 3 times, the magic number. So, good. And the other way. Right, another favorite is this one. 1, 2, 3. All the way up high. Good. And then watch out for your neighbors here. 1, 2, 2. 1, 2. Really short tap to wake our brains. And once you tap, you're going to make sure you calm it back down by just rubbing the medulla. The 3 fingers, one direction. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now we just want to really strengthen here, just like tight, both sides at the time, like this. 1, 2, 3. 3, 2, 1. One more. 1, 2, 3. 3, 2, 1. Now we have weights, really heavy weights. And lift up, yes, there you go, good. Whew, let's relax. And then again, 1, 2, 3, down, and relax. And pick them up one more time. 1, 2, 3, relax. Pick them up, put them back down. Measure number 1, 2, 3. Let it go. So good, all right. And then we're going to do double breaths again. Out again with a lot of tension. Coming in. 1, 2, 3, relax. 1, 2, 3, in. One more time. We're going to do the circle next. That's a fun one. And over. I usually skip that one just because it's a little too much. So So walking in space, and you see those knees going up high. A little higher there. Oh. Good. All right, so the important thing here is that we stay right on our space. So when we walk in place, it means that you stay where you are. There you go. Let's stay here. There we go. Okay, run in place. There we go. Stop. And now we want to really shut that really heavy door right in front of it. Because all our forces like this big, huge door. And the other side really get, oh, good job, you guys. That door is shut. One more time. Other one. Time to relax. So good. Up with tension. Relax. Up with tension. Relax. Up with tension. Relax. All right, so we're going to shake a little bit. And I really like the last one. All the universe comes in, all the energy is soaking in. And let's give it all back up. All purified and clear. Let's bring it back in. Let it all go. As many times as you need to. Let it all go. Right, so good. Deep breath. And then go on our tippy toe. We're going to interlock the tree pose. Put our foot right here. We focus in a corner that does not move. Does any of you know the affirmation?
I'm calm. I am poised.
I am calm. I am poised. I am calm. I am poised. So good. Big circle of joy around us. Close your eyes. Relax and feel. We're going to do this for 10 seconds. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Very well. Let's do it on the other side. We up high again. Interlock. This time the other foot comes up. I am calm. I am poised. I am calm. I am poised. Big circle of joy and gold around us. Close your eyes. Relax and feel. 10 seconds. 3. Excellent. All right. So this is usually a good time to sit down, go into prayer. They usually ask for the tree pose. Now since you're sitting, you get to stand back up. We're going to do the 8. So what we're going to do, hold and make the biggest 8 you ever saw. All the way down, all the way up, down. Good. Now let's do the other way. Get the side around. So good. Use your right hand, small 8s everywhere around you. Showing it goes up the middle. Then we're going to do it with the left. Any 8 you would like to do. Then you turn around and behind you. Or you like. Okay. And one laying 8, figure 8. Okay, that's long, sorry. In the middle it goes up.
What did you call it?
Figure 8.
Lazy 8. Or laying 8. Lazy 8.
Sorry, lazy 8. So it's laying down but I'm
laying
laying up.
Oh, laying up.
Sorry. And on the other hand, right. Let me zip it all up. Close it. And let me sit down and put your breath.
How many of you'd like to be in her class? So the last principle of energy that I wanted to mention today is energy flows strongest where there is desire. Now you may have heard also, the greater the will, the greater the flow of energy. But this is on your handout of the 5 energy principles. Energy flows strongest where there is desire. So something has to grab our attention before we're going to put the energy there. And so how do we use this with kids? Well, we think about their levels of maturity, we think about what their interests are, and we meet them right there. And we grab their attention and then draw them into whatever it is that we want them to do. Another way to put this is we work with the kids' strengths. What are their strengths? We want to, because remember, the things that you concentrate on, you get more of. So if you're constantly concentrating on their inadequacies, the strengths aren't going to increase because what's getting your attention? But if you can find a strength, and sometimes you have to really search with some kids, right? It's all day long you want to be saying, sit down, do this, do that. You need to leap on that strength and give energy there and find a strength that a child has, a talent. And it can be anything from being good at running things to the office. It can be, of course, the traditional things we think about being good at school. I won't even mention those. But it can be good at comforting people when they're hurt on the playground. Whatever it is that you see positive, you want to bring that out in the children and realize that for them to have the most energy for our class, they need to be interested. So how do we grab their interest and attention? Pardon me one moment here. So I think too much in education, and you've heard me say this before, but I'm going to keep saying it. If you've read my book, you've read it there too, is we spend too much time talking and thinking that we can use words and reason to help people grow. People don't grow by words and reason, do they? They grow by experience. You think about the biggest steps of growth you've made. It's because you try it one way for so long and it doesn't work, and suddenly you realize there's a different way to try it, and you do that, and it works. And too much, you see it all the time of people, you especially see it with these parents who are drawn to our school. They don't want to be authoritarian anymore. They don't want to use violence on their children, so they spend hours reasoning with the child as to why they shouldn't do this or why that wasn't the right thing to do. And they insist that their children understand, but what really happens is they talk to them until the child is exhausted from this verbiage. It goes, and not some children may understand. But the most important thing before we talk to them is to get the energy different, to change the energy. And as it says in Education for Life, to achieve fresh insights, this is chapter 9 of Education for Life, to achieve fresh insights into the problems children encounter in daily life, the intellectual understanding of a problem is not only insufficient, but often not helpful at all. What is important is that they find themselves moving happily in a new direction. And we become experts at how to help them move happily in a new direction. There was a class of Army recruits, and the sergeant was trying to train up some new leaders. And so one day he goes over, it's almost late in the morning, and he goes over to one of the Army recruits and he says, get everybody to go outside. And he whispers it, nobody else. So the guy gets up and he says, everybody go outside. And everybody just sat there. So he said, please go outside. I want you to, it's really important. And everybody sat there. So the sergeant said, have a seat. And went over to the next recruit and said, get everybody to go outside. And so this recruit got up and says, all right, men, time for lunch, fall out. The room emptied. So that's, again, that last one. Energy goes where there's desire. So we become expert psychologists at looking at what's wanted and how can I use that to direct the energy in a positive way that will create harmony and relaxed alertness for the whole class to learn. So that's the end of the flow of energy class.